Wisconsin penalty gives the 49ers an automatic first down instead of punting from the end zone. Moore loses the football. It's recovered by Tufon. He fumbles. It's still loose. And it's taken into the end zone for a touchdown by Craig Terrill.
From Lebanon, Indiana, Craig Terrill. Lebanon is, where is it from Indy? Is it close or not?
It's about 30 minutes northwest of Indianapolis.
Okay. So you've been to Indy a few times in your life.
Yeah, it's God's country, Indiana.
Always try to stand strong, face to face with my fears. I still look for the good and people still fall hard when they let me down. I hold a person in the words and I say I close my eyes for peace of mind at the end of each day, and that's the joy of being an Indiana boy.
From the days of playing youth football out at Southside Park, growing up through the middle school here and through the high school, and then getting to play college football at Purdue, it was, I felt, very comfortable in Central Indiana. This was home to me. So that phone call came and said, we're picking you in the 6th round. You're flying to Seattle next weekend. That's, for a Central Indiana kid, that was a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts, but it's still, like I said, that moment of that dream coming true.
Craig Terrill.
It's funny, it kind of happened in stages for me. And oddly enough, like down the hallway here in the high school, over where the weight room used to be, I remember a conversation with one of our assistant coaches, and I think I was a sophomore in high school, and he said, hey, you could get your college paid for if you continue to work at this. And that was an eye-opening moment for me. I was like, really? Like that's really within the realm of possibility. So I think that early on that put that work ethic in me to try to make that first step, past high school football to play collegiate football.
Picture of the BCS Dragons, 3rd down and 8. Bazanet sacked back at the 15-yard line. They got to him again, Craig Terrill. Craig Terrill is playing outstanding football in his senior year.
I had 2 older brothers who still live here in Lebanon to this day, and they did their job as older brothers. They beat me up every day and instilled that toughness. I think the family that I grew up in, we were a farming family who, multiple jobs to make ends meet, long hours working with livestock, working in the field, baling hay, whatever it was. So I think that hard work, I was blessed with that characteristic early on by the example set by the people, in my family, by the friends of our family. So that was something that I felt like I grabbed onto at a young age, and then transferred all that dedication into the sport that I love to play.
Attempt by Vitaly Pisetsky, the 5th-year senior, high snap, and the kick is blocked. It's picked up by the Boilermakers, and it's going to be Woodyard. He's going to score. He's going to score, and the Boilermakers win it in overtime.
I was lucky enough to play for, Joe Tiller at Purdue, and what was at the time, and it's happening again, but a really good football program. You had players like NFL players like Drew Brees, Matt Light, a ton of guys who were playing at Purdue who got the opportunity then to go to the NFL. And I don't think that was ever a thought. I mean, I always had that childhood dream of like, I'm the only one, I'm the youngest of 3 kids, so I'm out in the yard playing football by myself, throwing the ball up in the air and running underneath it and catching it and running the whole game through my head as an NFL player. But I think right around my junior year in college, when I realized the guys around me are really getting scouted to be NFL players, and they're looking at me too. And that was that second moment, kind of like I had here at the high school of like, oh wow, there's another step to this if I keep pressing on and keep working at this. There was nothing special about me from a physical standpoint. I felt like throughout my days in football there were faster and stronger and bigger guys than me, but I wanted it more than they did, and I was going to work harder than they would. So I hope if people look at this trophy case here at the high school that they take that as the prime example of don't want anybody to tell you you can't achieve what you want to achieve if you're willing to work for it.
Thank you.
Always dreamed to get my hands on the football, and as a defensive lineman, that was always the hardest thing to do. I was lucky enough to score a touchdown at home in Seattle against the San Francisco 49ers, where it was a fumbled play, and I was at the right place at the right time, and the ball, popped into my hands, and I only had to go about 7 yards, which was a huge blessing because I wasn't trying to outrun everybody down the field. I think the sport of football is such a cool combination of all the 11 guys on the field and how they have to coincide at the same time to be successful. And you see it all the time where you have one really, really skilled player, and if they don't build around that guy, then the program is not successful. And I think those moments of seeing those guys put in the work with me and knowing that they were holding me accountable to do that work as well, and then to see that transfer into winning football games and winning championships and winning divisions, those are really cool moments that stick with me. Seattle was, a big change in my life, and as much as I loved that opportunity and playing in the NFL and the community there, I think every off season we'd come back to Lebanon every summer, and we'd get home right after the playoffs would end. We'd book a flight and come home, see family and see people that we knew, the community members that I grew up with, and the guys that I played football with from those early days at Southside Park. That was cool, after a long NFL season where you're beat up and where you're tired and kind of emotionally spent, to have that sense of home. And I think that really resonated deep in Rachel and I's heart, and that we knew as we were having young kids that we wanted them to experience that sense of home. Man, I would ride my bike to downtown Lebanon on a weekly basis to go to the old Titus donut shop downtown and roll in there, and that was my NFL diet. Now, so I wouldn't advise that now that, it was... it's not the best way to get in top physical shape, but that is a memory that I just hold dear. That I could, we lived out in the country. I'd ride my bike right into town and have that experience, and we'd meet my friends there, and we'd all sit down and have a donut and have downtown Lebanon as our playground before you head to football practice. I think when we moved back to Lebanon, I think the conversation that my wife and I had was what took us so long, really, which was a cool thing to have, because, you can, trying to recreate that home feeling can not work out sometimes for some people. But I think when we got here and we were able to step out of the traffic, the high cost of living, the rain, all the things that come along with living in the Pacific Northwest, and we loved our time there, but I think once we saw that pace of life that we had here and the values that our friends and our families had here, we definitely had that conversation of what took us so long to come back here. This is perfect. I love seeing young athletes trying to improve their game. I think when I think back to my times in high school, and the people and the coaches that were influential in my life and in my advancement in the sport, that was just a huge blessing that I could never thank them enough for, really, because they came along at a time where if I was struggling with a certain play or a certain lift in the weight room or a certain subject in school, that those people were just in my lives. And I don't think that's random. I think that was something bigger than me, that they were put in my life to help me along, to help me achieve my goals and my dreams. So if I can be that for somebody else, I've gained a lot of experience through the years in sports and in football and in athletics and in life in general. So if I can pass a little bit of good information on to a high school or middle school or younger kid that is scratching his head at that moment, like, what do I do here? I can see myself in that young athlete, that young student that is looking for a little bit of an impact in their life. To see my community and my school and the people here celebrate that I got to live my dream come true is just such an awesome experience for me. It's cool to see my kids see that and see I guess, a bit of a dreaming that can happen in their eyes then, and hopefully other kids can see that as well of like, there's nothing you can't accomplish.